We spoke about project finance, we spoke about structured finance, we didn't talk about public finance. Let me give you a word on public finance. Public finance is about financing needs, namely infrastructure need, through the issuance of bank loan and bonds by municipalities or local governments. These bank loan and bonds will be repaid through the general taxing authority of the local government that issued them. But there is no specific dedicated revenue stream or taxing resources to repay those liabilities, by contrast to the typical project finance we talked about earlier. The municipality is, by essence, taxing its population, and the general pool of taxes resources are there to repay all the liabilities, whatever are the source of these liability, without any earmarking of these resources. So typically, when we look at a public finance transaction, and if we want to compare this public finance transaction to a project finance transaction, the main difference is due to the fact that one relies on taxes, the other relies on revenue generated by the infrastructure itself. In a sense, public and corporate finance share a common point. In both cases, no earmarking of resources is made to repay the liability incurred. Now that we spoke about the difference between public, project, corporate finance and structured finance, let's have a word on the differentiation between social and economic infrastructure. Social infrastructure is usually a type of infrastructure that is not for profit. By contrast, economic infrastructure is a form of infrastructure that is for profit. Typical infrastructure which would be social is, for example, a daycare center, a university, an hospital, justice, police. These infrastructure do not require the user to pay a fee. By definition, these infrastructure are financed through general taxing power of either the municipality or the central government. By contrast, if you take transportation, road, toll road, bridges, airports, ports, energy, solid waste, oil and gas, telecommunication, all those infrastructure benefit from the payment of a specific fee for the service rendered. In between both, you have infrastructure that could benefit from a portion of financing from the user and a portion of financing from the municipality or the government. Stadium, arenas, for example, could be a perfect example of such infrastructure financed partially by the public sector and the private sector. We have been able to tell you more about what is project finance. Hopefully, you have now a better idea of what project finance is, and you would be able to differentiate this form of financing from other forms of financing that are familiar to you. You will also be in a position to understand the reasons and the stakes associated with the participation of a major sponsor to a project. You understand now what are the conditions of going into a specific bid for a specific project. You also understand what are the considerations regarding consolidation, regarding the success of partnership, regarding the alignment of interest of the sponsors with its partner. You are now able to make such a judgment. Finally, you were given a clear picture of what social infrastructure is compared to economic infrastructure. What is financed through the tax, what is financed through the user's fees, and ultimately what are the projects that are pursued for profit from those that are pursued for non-profit. What you will see in the next video is how these project finance models evolved, geographically speaking, what were the models we saw in infrastructure finance? What are the new trends? And obviously, we will give you a little more color on what are the desired conditions for success of a project finance.